the second game I was playing against Edik. I was also playing with the white pieces, and as usual I placed the pawn in the center, taking control of two important squares. My opponent decided to play c6. Usually I play here c4, but I said why not transpose into an opening that that we can play like normal chess. So he gave up the center, but his idea is to strike back and fight for those light squares in the center. So e4. Now another alternative would be if I play c4. This is a transposition to the Slav defense. This is totally different. Also, another variation is e4 c6, and then d4. This is transposition to the same variation that we have in the game. But I started with d4, c6, e4, d5, and I developed the piece. I want him to take my pawn so that I position my knight in a very nice square that usually in this variation black should take, knight takes, you attack with the bishop. Okay, now you attack the bishop, he needs to retreat, or else it's giving up the pair of bishops for nothing. Now h4, h6, or it could be e6, sorry, knight f3, e6, now h4, h6, it's all transposition, the same variation. If he tries to attack the bishop, you go and you don't give it away. Yeah, knight h6 here. And after all of this, white would play something maybe first c6, bishop d3, and then the bishop gets exchanged. Black doesn't have any issues because if you look at his pawns, they are all on the white pieces. He will exchange the bishop because it's outside of the pawn chain, and he's leaving a good bishop with him. Let's go back to the game. So d4, c6, okay, e4, okay, d5, knight c3, and knight f6. This is the first mistake. Why? Because in the opening it's very important to develop your pieces. You have to develop everything really rapidly. You have no time to lose. And in this case, I could kick the knight and take a tempo. We call it a tempo. Tempo comes from a word in Italian which means time. So knight df, knight f, d7. If you go back here, it's really bad because the knight on this square, he has only this location, and I can sacrifice and destroy the pawn structure. The king wouldn't be safe looking if he wants to castle kingside. That's not an option, so his only option is to go here. So I developed my piece. He played e6. I actually defended this one because usually black plays a variation with c5, and white should play knight e2 and c3, and whenever black captured this pawn, you captured with the pawn. And I'll explain why this is a very important move that white should do it. Usually you have those central squares. Let's remove the arrows. Those, we call them the sweet center. The value of those squares are 3 points, and you have let's put it in another color. You have those squares around the sweet center. We call it the big center. Each square is valued 2 points, and all of the rest of the board, they are 1 point. So just to explain my point, so if we play something like this, and for example, black decided to exchange, we exchange. He's left with 2 pawns in the center. He exchanged a pawn from the big center with a pawn in the sweet center. So he exchanged a pawn which is valued on this square 2 points with someone valued 3 points. So it's a bit of an advantage structurally, not a lot, but something very minor for black. But black has more issues. Like for example, this bishop is blocked by his pawns. So if black is able to resolve this issue, he has a good game. And white needs to make sure that this bishop is out of the game for the rest of the game. So it's a struggle between two strategies. Okay, so I played f4. Black should have played here c5, but he didn't. He instead played g6. I don't see the reason of playing g6. You want to fianchetto, but usually, like in a very general rule, when you play e6, you don't play g6 because those squares are very prone for attacks, and all you have to do is exchange this bishop, and then the position will collapse. So I highly don't recommend this approach, playing e6 and g6 at the same time. If you want to go for g6, you don't play e6, and if you want to go for e6, you don't go for g6. There are some special cases that you could do it, but I'm just saying in general. So knight f3. Also, he had the chance to play c5. He didn't do it, and he positioned his knight here, which is very understandable because the knight here is taking the place of the knight, and the bishop is not doing anything. This bishop is not doing anything. All the black pieces are not developed. Yeah, instead I would have recommended this approach, and maybe I would have fallen for a mistake. For example, here you can play c4, and my bishop is dead. Of course, I'm not gonna fall for it, but that's a possibility. So c4, c5 here would have been a good approach. Bishop e3, a good another continuation. You continue, put pressure here. You want as black, you want white to capture here because you're gonna develop your misplaced knight to a very well positioned. And if he wants to sacrifice you, you have a really strong bishop. Let's go back to the game. So knight b6, I castled. Bishop g7, so he's preparing castling as well. A very good move whenever you see the knight here is a4. Why? Because you want to play a5 first, you take the space advantage, and you kick the knight from here to a very awkward position. Maybe back to d7 where both knights are fighting for one square. So he blocked a5, he recognized that I want to play a5, and then he played knight e2. I played knight e2. Okay, my plan was, since he has those two and then he's stopping them, there's a rule in chess, if you have 3 pawns, for example a chain, you must attack the last defended pawn with a piece. For example, in this chain, the last defended pawn from another pawn is this one. So I need to attack this pawn. Also, in this chain, the last defended pawn is this one. So it makes very obvious that you need to play g4 with f5. So that's my my strategy. But in order to do that, I don't want to just exchange. He's now defending it 1, 2, and 3. So at the moment I cannot, because I have 1, 2. So I need to bring more pieces. My plan was to play g4, knight g3, and if he castles, I probably am gonna push it and destroy the castling for the black and attack it. So that was my plan. And in the meantime, all the pieces, the black pieces are not doing anything. They are not. They need a lot of moves to join the game. This one is stuck by his pawns, so it's only defending. Yeah, the game continued. Knight 8 d7. Okay, developing. You need to play c5. You always don't give up the center as easily. You have to strike back. If the position in the center is close, then you start thinking about playing on the other side, either the king side or the queen side. So g4, as I mentioned, this was my strategy. Castle, that's what I wanted him to do. Knight g3, and also same concept we mentioned here. If there is a pawn chain, let's say this pawn is here. There we have a pawn chain here. Okay, the last defended pawn from another pawn is this one. So you should attack with a pawn to the square. On the other hand, at the moment you have those two pawns. This is the chain here. So what's the last pawn being defended? It's actually this one. So that's why f6 is very reasonable here. Yeah, so f6 was the best move. So he played queen e7. Okay, first, now the bishop doesn't cover this the square. He's only protecting it twice. I can attack it 1, 2, and 3 times. So it's time to strike. So I played f5, very logical move. Knight b8. He wants now to take it, because now he has three attackers. 1, 2, and 3. But unfortunately, there's a fork. Now I'm forking those two, and that's what happens in the game. He had to sacrifice. So takes, and at this moment it's very hard to do anything. Queen d6. I played queen d2. I want my point is to come here and make a checkmate. Very obvious move. So he tried to attack this square. I protected it. Now he cannot eat it, but he had to, because I was going here and I wanted to checkmate. So he had no option. I took, and now he made a blunder. King g7, and if you pause a bit and think about a checkmate, this is a really nice checkmate. So the solution is queen h6, okay, and king takes f6. Now checkmate in one move, bishop g7. I'll let you also think about if, for example, king comes to g8, what happens? There should be also like a checkmate here. But where is it? Yeah, maybe here. because if you eat, I want a checkmate here, and if you eat, I have a checkmate here. Yeah, as a conclusion for this game, like a very important position would be this, not to play knight f6, of course, because you're giving me a tempo. But I gave you what should have been done. Another move that is very important is to strike and fight for the middle. You cannot let me just control everything and just push against your king. As a general rule, here also you have to follow your pawn structure. Your pawn structure is telling you this direction. So your strength is on this side here, on the queen side, because the pawn direction is here. On the other hand, my pawn direction is this one. So I wanted the king to castle here because the structure benefits white to attack the king, and black, his structure dictates that he needs to play on the queen side.